And now, please join us in welcoming the CEO of Riyadh Air, Tony Douglas, in discussion with Skift Asia editor, Peden Doma Bhutia.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you.
How are you feeling? Jet-lagged?
I don't know where I am, what time of day it is. I've done 7 flights in 5 days, and it's an absolute pleasure to be back in Dubai.
Okay, good. But I hope you'll be able to answer all the questions and you don't doze off.
I won't doze off. I'll do my best.
Okay. Tony, speaking about Riyadh Air, how do you plan to distinguish yourself from other legacy Middle Eastern carriers, given the brief that you're looking at more at a point-to-point travel rather than being a super connector?
So the brand is Riyadh. The brand is Riyadh. The brand is Riyadh. It's obviously the name of the capital city of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I think, as everybody probably knows in the room, it's the largest country in the Arabian Peninsula. It's 2/3 the size of Western Europe. It's the world's fastest growing economy at the moment. It's G20 country, obviously. The average age of the whole of the country is 29. And it's got the highest iOS, Apple adoption per capita of anywhere in the world. But what it hasn't got at the moment is adequate global connectivity. So you can't fly directly from Riyadh to Tokyo today. You can't fly directly from Riyadh to Shanghai, to Seoul in Korea, etc., etc., etc. And that is simply unacceptable for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. There's trillions of dollars being spent on global destination attractions, the likes of Red Sea resorts, Neom, Alula, etc. And of course, Riyadh is a happening place. Just 3 weeks ago, the announcement of Expo 2030.
Yes.
So,
and the Asian Games also, right?
Yeah. And
hopefully the World Cup.
World Cup, hopefully, in 2034 as well. So all of this needs a second large national carrier, because the difference between Riyadh today and perhaps here where we are in Dubai, and in particular in Doha, in Qatar, is 93% of all the traffic that goes into Riyadh today is point-to-point. There's hardly any transfer. And that's a function of demand is far greater than supply and connectivity. Out of the top 10 routes in the world, the top 10 busiest routes in the world, 2 of the top 10 are the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Jeddah to Cairo in at number 2, and at number 6, Dubai, not surprisingly, with Riyadh. And that's the highest yielding air route on the face of God's planet. So demand is far greater than supply. The kingdom needs better connectivity, and we are tasked to introduce in excess of 100 cities within the first 5 years of operation. So we go live Q2 of 2025, and by 2030 to well over 100 cities. So a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. And so what about, when you talk about, of course, you spoke about the fact that Riyadh lacks direct connectivity with major cities in the world. So you've announced like 100 cities globally by 2030, right? So when you are chalking out your expansion strategies and your routes, how about connecting to feeder markets like Guangzhou, Shanghai, Delhi, Bombay, Tokyo, for that matter, like major feeder markets in APAC region?
So I think the examples you used, and there are many others as well, are absolutely essential. You're talking about the world's second biggest economy. Of course, in China, we've got, as everybody knows, 2/3 of the world's population within 6 flying hours of where we are. The facts are, in my mind, absolutely extraordinary in the sense that in 2023, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is the second most Googled or internet searched tourist destination. So the power of brand that's been developing, the proposition, is something that, of course, then leads to, well, how do I get there? And the answer quite often today is not as easy as it should be. So connectivity, not just for leisure, but obviously back to the fact that it's the fastest growing economy in the world, having business connectivity is absolutely fundamental. And the brand is Riyadh. We've deliberately represented and presented that brand into 2 aircraft liveries that we would like to think stand out in the crowd and almost demand an explanation, because I'd like to think that they speak to the modernistic face of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the fashionable face of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the digital face of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
When you speak about digital face, and you spoke about the fact that there is a very young population in the country. So you've also spoken about, earlier you've spoken about the fact that you want to cater to the underserved domestic demand of young travelers for a high-tech flying experience. So what are the technological advancements that they're putting in place to cater to these travelers?
So again, if I can, I'll just go back to the brand is Riyadh. There are 3 pillars that support that brand proposition. One is an absolute obsessional attention to detail with guest experience. The second one is we will be, from an input point of view, a thought leader when it comes to commercial aviation sustainability. But to your point now, the third one is we'll be a genuine digital native. And that's a function of the demand we have from our citizens, from our home population, for the reasons I mentioned before. Average age 29 and the highest iOS use in the world. Life is operated by that device. Why should the travel experience with their national carrier be any different? But the gift that we've got, of course, as a startup, is a blank sheet of paper. We don't have a legacy. We don't, therefore, have the many issues that have happened for good reason over decades when it comes to systems and protocols that are difficult to digitize at the pace that we would all like to do. With a blank sheet of paper, we've looked to really, from an input standpoint, say, okay, how do we make this something that gives you the ease of guest interface similar to the way that we're all used to working with Amazon or Noon when it comes to online order offer? If you're on an in-cabin experience, the similarity that perhaps you would have if you're on the ground with your personal streaming, the way in which you can entertain with the content that you wish to have. We will have the fastest bandwidth when it comes to connectivity as a result of the technology stacks that we've been deploying. And what we're trying to do is launch, back to those 3 pillars, a new national carrier that's a true digital native, and that's exactly what our guests want.
Okay. You talked about starting with a blank paper, and of course, you have this hiring target of, you've said earlier that you want to hire about 700 pilots, about 6,000 cabin crew, and about 1,000 engineers. Now, one of the biggest challenges in the aviation industry is hiring skilled and trained personnel. So what are you trying to do to attract and retain these people?
So I think the thing that surprised me the most with this is as follows. His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, decreed the establishment of Riyadh Air on the 12th of March this year. So we are 10 months old, essentially 9 months old. Prior to that, the brand didn't exist. We had fake newsed it as RIA, R-I-A, and we did that for a bit of boyhood mischievousness with the media fraternity. It's actually air spelt backwards. So anyway, I'm quite pleased about that one. So 12th of March, Riyadh Air becomes pronounced by His Royal Highness. And at the same time, we introduced RiyadhAir.com. And if you go onto RiyadhAir.com, there is a careers page that invites people who want to register their interest and post their resumes and their type certifications and so on and so forth. And we got over, last week, the 1 million mark of people who have applied in 9 months. Over 1 million in 9 months. 146 different nationalities, 52% female, well in excess of 45% Saudi nationals, which is fantastic, 45,000 pilots. Now, that doesn't suggest for a minute that the answer's in what I've just described, but nonetheless, I think that is an illustration of the excitement of commercial aviation. I think the interest in a new, fresh brand, and the fact that because it's been pronounced by His Royal Highness, this one certainly isn't a case of might happen, could happen, should happen. This is going to happen because it's been decreed, and we've gone over 1 million. Now, I'll fess up. If it was 3 months before the 12th of March and somebody said, Tony, how many people would you have expected to have applied? I might have said 20,000. And I'm an optimist, I'm a positive guy, think big, let's call it 30. We've been really very pleasantly taken by surprise because it's a new story and everybody loves a new story.
When we are speaking about challenges, let's also talk about the other challenge that the aviation sector is facing, and that is about the supply challenges, right? And there is an industry-wide supply chain challenge as far as aircraft deliveries are concerned. So what are the measures in place to ensure that you have a smooth launch?
So I think, first of all, there's a reality to what you've described. There's no point in, trying to sugarcoat it or describe it in a different way. The reason why probably I do look a little bit tired is I've just come from Charleston, South Carolina, where this beautiful machine is assembled by Boeing. And it's a function of working very closely with all the members of our extended family. And I deliberately use those words because obviously we can't deploy without the delivery of these incredible machines. We have tried to make the following quite clear. We are a special case. We're different. We have a special need, thank you, sir. And the reason why we're special and we're needy is because the brand is Riyadh, the brand is Riyadh, the brand is Riyadh. But more to the point, we don't have a plan B. The reason why we don't have a plan B is obvious. If I was Lufthansa, if I was Qatar Airways, or whoever, and they were delivered late, I'll change my network around. I might extend some leases. I've got plan Bs, Cs, Ds, Es, and Fs. We don't have a current fleet. Correct. We don't have a network until the first deliveries arrive. So what we've tried to make clear with everybody is we do need special care, we do need special attention, and not surprisingly, a big part of the evaluation of which contracts we've entered into is the means by which we have a higher level of assurance of delivery on time. And it's always going to be a challenge, let's face it.
And when we talk about this special airline, and we have a picture of the aircraft as well, was it a conscious decision not to have a first class? Because you've announced that you'll have a business, premium economy, and an economy class. So was it a conscious decision, and why not a first class?
So it was a very conscious decision, and it's driven by financial sustainability as well as environmental sustainability. First class for many carriers, and I stress not all, but for many carriers, is a charitable affair. What I mean by that is my father taught me when I was very young that any fool, son, can sell $100 for 50. Let's face it, if we walk outside now, stand in the street and say, I've got a suitcase full of $100 bills, I'm now going to sell them for 50, we'll probably get crushed in the stampede. First class, for many international carriers, is an egotistical, charitable act which is not commercially sustainable. it's $100 for 50. And the reason why is it's quite often 2.5 times the real estate floor space than the business class, but you don't sell it for 2.5 times the ticket price. So by definition, it's $100 for 50. We will not do that because we're not a registered charity, number one. But more importantly, the products that are in the market today that you can customize and you can develop will reveal our interior. So I'm now teasing for the big reveal, Q2 of next year. Our J-Class, our business, I'd like to think you will conclude, is better than just about anybody's first class out there. I think when you see our premium economy, I'd like to think most of you will conclude that's better than just about anybody's business class you'll see out there. And actually, most importantly, when you see our economy, I think you'll probably conclude that's better than just about anybody's premium economy out there. And the reason why, that is obviously one of the two liveries I described before. It looks more like a billionaire's G700, G650 than a regular commercial aviation livery. And lots of people have already said, well, if it looks that great on the outside, what does it look like on the inside? Just hold that thought. And a second little tease, it wasn't in the question, but you've got me on a roll now. The jet lag has melted away, melted away.
You're making my life easy.
We won't have cabin crew uniforms either. We'll have cabin crew fashion. We'll have cabin crew fashion, and wait till you see the fashion that we have.
So do you have a designer for that?
We do, and I'll tease, which I've already done, and we'll reveal that in the new year as well. But it will be a statement of the modernistic, fashionable face of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And in exactly the same way that livery demands an explanation, the interior will definitely demand an explanation, and cabin crew fashion will do as well. Hold that thought.
A lot of things. No first class, no cabin crew uniforms. That's really interesting and something to look forward to. Tony, but you've also been signing partnerships with Turkish and Saudi. So what are these partnerships for, and what do they do for a new airline like you?
So partnerships is key in our businesses. I think everybody's probably aware of, to get global reach, to give guest connectivity to far more destinations. And I guess the surprise in this one might be for some people, how quickly we've got into these relationships, given the fact that we won't be operational till Q2 of 2025. But it's actually about giving the citizens of the kingdom and our guests a clear indication of the scale of the ambition that we have through our own network to in excess of 100 cities really quickly. But the likes of Turkish, they've got the biggest international network by number of destinations in the world. So not surprisingly, that was one of the first ones that we entered into. The second, actually the first, of course, Saudia, a national carrier, of course, again, to give everybody continuity and connectivity. But to maintain the kind of teasing part of it, it's a new story. It's attracted an awful lot of attention in North America and China as well. And what we would anticipate is some of the biggest airlines in the world being connected so they can get better access to the world's fastest growing economy, of course, in the kingdom through Riyadh. And that will allow us to probably have a big relationship in North America, a big relationship in China, a big relationship in the Far East. Already we've got Turkish and Saudi, which means we'll accelerate very quickly to be able to get that network coverage.
And also you have the King Salman Airport also coming up, right? And Tony, of course, airport capacity is very important, infrastructure is very important to meet capacity demands. So what do you envision the role of Riyadh Air as far as the airport is concerned?
So I go back to digital native, and perhaps some of the comments that Paul Griffiths made before the lunch break. You know, the airport of the future needs to be a far more seamless and perhaps personal experience. And if we go back to digital, some of the things that we've seen being trialled already, we'd like to see as day one. So perhaps loyalty. You only have to transact with us once, and like your banking app, if you put your face recognition into it, your face is everything you'll ever need with us going forward. God's made us all different. We're all unique, which is fantastic. And as a consequence, bring yourself. You will be your travel documents. You will be your personal profile if you add additional information. And back to the airport, we will try and create an experience where queuing progressively becomes a thing of the past, because providing you bring yourself, you won't need to bring anything else. But if, for example, on your profile you tell us that you're left-handed, if, for example, you tell us that you're lactose intolerant, back to that obsessional attention to detail with guest experience, when you sit down and we serve you, we'll put your knives and forks the other way around. And we'll reassure you that the meal doesn't contain any lactose. And it'd be downright rude of us not to do that if you've told us you're left-handed. But of course today, when I've run big loyalty programs in the past, and of course there's been people walking around saying, I am a platinum member. There might have been 250,000 platinum members. There's nothing particularly unique about that when it comes to facilitating that obsessional attention to detail with guest experience, but perhaps also enabling a far more digital engagement. So again, we don't have a legacy, which is a gift. We have an opportunity to establish from the get-go a set of digital foundations which are demanded by the population that I've already described.
I know you touched a little upon the loyalty program, but since you are trying to do everything in a very new way, can we see a slightly different loyalty program coming out from Riyadh Air?
So I would suggest yes, because as I mentioned before, I'm a bit of an observer. I'm sure many of you are as well. You go into an airport at the moment, you tend to see, and I'm going to kind of stereotype it a little bit, but you'll get the idea. It tends to be males over 40 walking around with the case with the loyalty plastic tag hanging off the side of it. And of course, it's an attempt to walk around saying, look, I'm Billy Big Time, and I've got a platinum card on the side of my case. Now, they all tend to be over 40. Anybody under 40, I don't observe walking around with the plastic tag on the case because it's just not cool. And most of them are out of date anyway. Mm-hmm. What I'm really trying to say, and perhaps be a little bit more serious to the point, is that's not a one-to-one guest engagement strategy. That's a one-to-many. And I think back to the world of digital, if we all go onto Amazon now or noon, all at the same time, we probably all know that we're all going to get a different welcome page. Because if you've used it before, straight away, if this gentleman over here plays golf and he normally orders golf balls, that's most likely what will come up with you first. Because it digitally profiles based upon what your preferences are likely to be. Now, because we'll start from day one as a digital native with that ambition, it gives us the ability to make the guest experience when it comes to loyalty a lot more one-to-one as opposed to one-to-many. Mm-hmm. And that would be our ambition.
Very interesting, Tony. A lot of things to look forward to when Riyadh Air launches in 2025. Thank you so much for this chat today.
Thank you.
Thank you.